So we've had a chance to speak to our next guest a couple of times. Pietro Poletti used to be with the Montreal police for many, many years, worked in the crime divisions, gang wars, involved in all that stuff. And now that we head into a new year, particularly a troubling story, I guess, in La Presse today, talking about the fact that as bad as 2023 was, and there were some major incidents, gang wars that escalated in 2023, 2024 may be as or perhaps more eventful. So we wanted to get a breakdown from Mr. Poletti, if we could. Pietro, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I don't know if you had a chance to read the La Presse article, but I just want to ask you, first of all, and I know we've talked about this before, but this war between the Mafia and the Hells Angels to gain control here, have we seen a vacuum now that has to be filled? And I'm asking because, of course, when Greg Woolley was killed, that seemed to create a vacuum. What's going on there?
I think, I don't know how they got that information. My information, what I know from the streets, there is no war between the Mafia and the Hells Angels. And there's been no killings related to it directly or indirectly. And one thing that is for sure is that even though we have no one leader in Montreal, when there were leaders in Montreal of the traditional based organized crime, Italians or strong leaders of the bikers, there was always murders, probably even more. People must understand it's a culture of violence, and it's fueled by money, power. Throwing out that there's a war between the Hells and the Italian Mafia, I think it's something that shouldn't be said until it's proven.
Okay, so what do you think the situation's going to be like this year? Do you anticipate things ramping up? Do you think it's going to be worse than last year?
Like I mentioned in the podcast in the past also, where society has changed. Within the Italian-based organized crime, I'd like to call it Canadian organized crime. It's 2024. There's many factions. There's many groups. There's not one group. Yes, there was a leader, Mr. Rizzuto, but there was other clans also. And there's been disaccord, yes, with the DeVito clan and other clans. But we'll see the bikers, and we're always talking street level now. People must remember that the Mafia, there's many levels. I think for the most part, traditionally, Italian-based organized crime has gone corporate, the corporate Mafia. At the street level, there is conflict between little cliques, little clans. So we might see settling of accounts. And there's street gangs and other groups. In 10 years from now, we won't be talking about traditional organized crime, Italians, or even bikers. There's so many other groups that are coming from South America, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, that'll make these guys look like altar boys. It's where society has changed.
Does that make it harder to police because it's so fragmented?
Absolutely. And what policing, the techniques they're using today, which I'm against, they're showing or exposing their game plan before they do anything. There's no more surprise effect. And one example of this, it's in the news every day, is that they've been advertising that they have this great informant that will testify to 30 or 40 murders. What you're really doing is telling other groups and clans and cliques, organizations, criminal organizations, that this fellow will be testifying against you. So what are they doing? Well, the testimony of an informant is essential, but you need corroborating evidence. So you might have people that were associated with him that knows that might testify, right, that will be getting killed. So it's I think policing has to be revised, and journalism also. The police use journalists to spread rumors and at times misinformation.
Oh, interesting. So when you say that the information in the La Presse article is very different from what you have, you think that's potentially like it's a ploy almost?
Well, there is no war, especially when we're high-level organized crime, the Hells Angels, or there's no interest for them to have a war amongst each other. Mm-hmm. There's no interest. There's enough to share, especially with online gambling. That's signed, sealed, and delivered. They all have their part in it. At the street level, it's another discourse. It's another reality. And other gangs are coming up, and which we see it every day in Montreal, car bombings, and that's what we have to worry about, the new gangs.
So it's not about trying to stake out territory as it used to be in the old days anymore?
Yeah, Montreal, even though we say people have assimilated, there's still ghettos, and each ghetto has its own clan. And so, yes, they are trying to make, their own territory. But at the end of the day, it's who has the product, the new drugs that are coming in, overdoses. Whenever there's an overdose, that is chemical drugs coming in and being distributed to the poor victims on the street, stronger than fentanyl. And this is what the police have to concentrate on, on the new gangs and the pushers on the street.
I want to ask you what I started with, and I remember we talked about this at the time. So the Greg Woolley murder that took place in broad daylight in front of his wife and child in a parking lot, that's not typical of what you might expect to have in a gang war. What message do you think that was trying to send?
Well, the message, I don't think there was a message. It shows that the people they're hiring to do these crimes are inexperienced. They panic. The right time, opportunity, they don't take nothing into consideration. We don't have the hitman we had 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the Real Simard of this world, or Bash Trudeau, you name them, or were they professional hitmen. Today, everybody's got access to a weapon, and for a modest fee, or even drugs, they'll commit a serious crime.
So you think in the case of Greg Woolley that you're saying this was just a sloppy job that was being done, to hire anybody, paid him a few bucks, or as you said, even drugs, and that's why it wasn't to send a specific message?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, the last, I think it wasn't because the last murder that was Vince Scuderi in St. Leonard, it was done on a rainy night, that night, no witnesses. Mm-hmm. In his driveway, I covered that scene. But it was done by professionals and where the honest, law-abiding citizen wouldn't get hurt. And yes, if we go back to the years 95, when the biker wars, the young child that got killed, the Rocher, that's when the Wolverine squad started. They started getting sloppy. So we might see more and more of this, but we'll see different gangs. And if you ask members of organized crime, they don't know what's going on with the bombings of cars and the arsons. And so we have new groups coming up, and it's easy to target the traditional groups, Hells Angels, Italians, but we can't start. They want peace. At the end of the day, they want peace, and their worries is also these South American groups that are coming up and causing problems. And the European authorities, they keep insisting, just last week, saying that Canada is the entry point of narcotics. Instead of going through Mexico, they'll come through Montreal and other port cities in Montreal. So we have to concentrate on who's bringing the product in and who's distributing it and who's buying it. And stop glorifying these small thugs that we see on the news that are in their early 20s, and those aren't real mafia men.
Okay, so then to that end, Pietro, we're out of time, but just given that, yes, okay, it's a more disjointed, the mafia is changing, it's not what it used to be, not in a traditional sense, do you then anticipate that we need to brace ourselves for it being worse because there's more of it and it's more disjointed?
Absolutely. There's going to be younger people involved that have weapons. There are going to be more shootings. And hopefully, the more seasoned criminals will try to put a stop to it. Because, yes, I trust the police. Yes, they have to do their job. They don't have the funding. But when it comes to this, the way it's going now, I think we have to rely on criminal organizations to clean up their act and maybe put pressure on the smaller groups to stop doing what they're doing, because eventually the pressure will be put on the more traditional groups, Italians or bikers. They have to put a stop to this war.
All right. Pietro, as always, appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you so much, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.
Take
Pietro
care.
Poletti, former Montreal crime gang. I don't know what you call him. He's been in this, I hate to say
Mafia
business,
expert.
for a long, long time, more than 30, 35 years.